actually the brewmaster and chief operating officer for Flying Dog Brewery. So just to tell you a little bit about what we'll be doing tonight, of course, we will be tasting beer. But I'm also going to tell you a little about Flying Dog. We'll talk a little bit about craft beer in America and beyond. And talk about a little bit about food and beer. But really, this is, as any classroom should be, this is for you guys. So any questions that come up or anything that you guys want to know, please don't hesitate to ask. You know, I don't look at you guys as guests or students. I look at you as participants and something that we're sharing together as a group. I'm going to start off. I'll obviously be talking plenty, but I don't want you guys to not have a beer and start drinking beer. So we're going to start off very quickly here and get into our first beer, and then we'll start telling some stories and whatnot. First, before we actually talk about the first beer we're going to have, I just want to briefly touch on. I think many of you already know this, but how to taste beer. I think a lot of people don't realize that the aromatic characteristics in beverages has a lot to do with the way the flavor is perceived. So when you have a beer, and this is a great kind of glass, these stem glasses, sometimes snifters, and really, you know, there's different glasses for different styles of beer, and there's some good reasons for that, and there's some not so good reasons for that, but this is a good kind of glass that allows those aromatics to come through. So when we taste the beer, we start off, we do a swirl, and then we do something that I like to call the drive-by. This is where you do a real brief kind of sniff across. Please participate along with me. This is, but you just do, you know, you don't kind of put your whole snout in there. You just kind of run it by your nose. And this is a little bit of a protecting factor because you never really know what you're about to try or what you're about to smell. So it could be something that is quite frightening or very unpleasant. So if you just kind of do the drive-by, that'll give you that initial little snapshot of what the aromatic characteristics are. Assuming that you like that and you want to go further, then you give another swirl. And you really take a, you know, just kind of a nice sniff, and then you really can get those aromatic characteristics. And then maybe a third, and then you should taste right after that.
Wheat beer.
Wheat beer.
Yeah.
And so now you get the full effect. And of course, when you drink wine, a lot of people will spit the wine out. Not with beer. Who wants to do that anyway? I mean, really, you know? But part of the thing with beer is that, you know, with some of the bittering characteristics, you really need to swallow to get the full, you know, to kind of the full perception of all the flavors, and especially the bitterness that kind of starts hitting you in the finish. So you want to kind of go through that whole thing. Now, this is our in-heat wheat Hefeweizen. And I'm sure all of you are to some degree beer aficionados, or maybe you're all whiskey aficionados for all I know, but this is a German-style Hefeweizen. In America, we have an American version, and we have, of course, the traditionally produced German version. Ours is the traditional German style, and one of the biggest components with a beer like this is the special yeast strain that we use. Obviously, it's a wheat beer. Our beer here uses about 45% wheat malt in the grist. The grist is the kind of the mix of the barley and the grains that makes up, excuse me, the total grain bill. But these yeast characteristics give you some of those special aromatics that you're getting. You may get a little clove, maybe a little banana, and another unique thing about Hefeweizen is that it's unfiltered, and that unfiltered aspect of it can really help with some of the body and the mouthfeel characteristics, so that it kind of rounds out the flavors very nicely. What do you guys think right off the bat? Is this, you guys like this beer?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah? Well,
because normally you are not so good to make wheat beer in America. I think you are not so good at that.
Well, we like to. What's interesting is that we get a lot of emails, and there's a lot of servicemen in America, you know, the military who serve in Germany, and they come back and they try the in-heat wheat, and we get emails saying, "Oh my God, you know, I spent, you know, however many years in Germany, and I was drinking wheat beer, and until today, when they finally tried the in-heat wheat, they didn't realize that great Hefeweizens can be brewed in the U.S." What we're going to see tonight as we progress through the lineup, some of these beers are brewed in what I like to call traditional styles. Right now, the Brewers Association, which is the American trade organization for craft brewers, represents or has 84 different recognized beer styles. Of those beer styles, there's sub-styles, and this puts us over 100. So what a lot of people don't realize is that beer is very diverse. Right now in the U.S. there's something going on. It'll start in just a couple hours. It's a little earlier there, but it's called the Great American Beer Festival. And this is where American brewers kind of put their beers into these categories, and then they're judged and awards given out, similar to what happens here at the Stockholm Beer and Whiskey Fest. But as we'll see, this beer is brewed to the traditional style. But as we move along, we're going to see some beers that are brewed to a traditional style, and actually, I'd say only 2 of these really fit that parameter tonight, and then we're going to see some things that are just really artistic interpretations of just having fun with beer and what goes on with that. So you guys sip on your wheat beer. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. One of the frequent questions that I get when I'm out and I'm doing things like this is like, so you're a brewmaster. So how do you get to be a brewmaster? And of course, some people think I'm young. I'm not that young. I'm 35 years old. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that is young. But I started homebrewing when I was 17. Well, I told the school I was sick, but I was actually kind of taking a day off. And I was listening to a program in the U.S. On National Public Radio, a great public radio network that we have in the U.S. There's a show called Radio Times, a show where authors are interviewed about their new books. And I was listening to the show, and they were interviewing a man named Charlie Papazian. And Charlie Papazian, some of you may know him, I'm not sure, but he is considered in the U.S. to be kind of the homebrew guru. He really started the homebrew movement, the American Homebrewers Association. He started that, and he was promoting his book. It was called The Complete Joy of Homebrewing. And I listened to this, and up to that point, I'd been acquainted with what I describe as factory lagers, because in America, and a lot of people, their perception of American beers is this kind of factory lager. And I think you guys kind of all know what that is. I don't need to name names here. But up till then, that was all I'd been acquainted with. And then I had heard about world beer styles and about how you can make these at home. And I was totally fascinated by this. And I went out, I think that was maybe like a Thursday, and I went out and I bought this book and I brought it home. And I read it cover to cover, and I loved everything about it. And then that Saturday morning, I got up and I went to the homebrew store and bought the equipment and the kit and brought it home and started brewing. And of course, it's a little tricky. I was trying to kind of figure it out. Had to wait, of course, like 2-3 weeks for the beer to be done. Well, of course, in the U.S., the drinking age is 21, so it's not quite so easy for a 17-year-old just to go and get whatever beer they want. But so after about 3 weeks or so, I invite my friends over. I say, guys, this beer is finally ready. Let's drink it. Come on over. So they come over. We open up the bottles. I pour them out. We take a sip, and it's fucking awful. The beer was terrible. But we were 17, so we drank it anyway. We had nothing else to drink. So, but that didn't deter me. The next weekend I brewed another batch, and then another batch, and another batch, and I just kept going. And of course, I started figuring some things out, and it got easier. My beers got better, and it was about a year later, this is about 1994, I entered a Pilsner that I brewed in a homebrew competition, a local homebrew competition. And I think I won, a silver or a red ribbon or whatever it was. But I was so proud of myself because I was only 18 years old now, and I had brewed an award-winning beer. And it was a little kind of awkward because I probably shouldn't be brewing, but I was able to accept the award anyway. But that's the moment in time where I really decided that I wanted to brew professionally, that I wanted to make this a career. And brewing, like many other skills, I describe it as a trade, as a craft. So it takes, it takes a lot of time to learn something like that. So if you want to be a carpenter, you don't just spend, however many hours in a classroom and go out and be able to make, beautiful cabinets. You know that it takes time. You have to go through a process of an apprenticeship. And I did just that. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I sent a letter to a small startup brewery in New Jersey, and to the head brewer, and I said, hey, I really want to get into this, and he was kind enough to interview me, and I think my passion was shining through, and he gave me a job. And of course, I started off like sweeping floors and like taking out the trash or whatever it was. But then I started getting to be able to help with the brewing process. And then I was fortunate enough to go to, in America, we have a brewing school called the Siebel Institute. It's in Chicago. And I went there, and then I started learning some of the more technical, scientific aspects of beer making. And I returned from from Siebel, and I was given the position of assistant brewer. It was a brewery called Flying Fish in Cherry Hill, New Jersey at the time. So I was very proud of that. But I was living in New Jersey, And if you look at a map of the United States, and you'll see that New Jersey is one of these little states, you know, along the Atlantic coast, and there's 10 million people that live in this little state. And there's a lot more to see in America, and I was young, and I was full of piss and vinegar, and I wanted to go see, you know, see the country. But also back then, you know, craft brewing wasn't particularly popular in the area that I was living. It was still something that a lot of people were discovering, but there were other areas of the country, like the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Northwest, where there was a lot of action going on. So I took that classic road trip, you know, loaded up the car, I got a tent, you know, the whole deal, and I traveled across the country visiting every brewery that I could, knowing the whole time that I was really looking for a job, and I wanted to get out of Jersey and, you know, go kind of live somewhere where craft brewing is much more popular and I can learn very quickly. And I came to the state of Colorado, and anybody who's ever been to Colorado knows that it's a very beautiful place. And I got there and I fell in love, and I said, okay, this is it. I'm moving to Colorado. Of course, I continued my trip, and I went to the Pacific Northwest, and I had a great time. But I came back in the summer of '98. And you know, my girlfriend and I said, look, I said, we need to move to Colorado. And she thought I was crazy, but I convinced her, and she came with me. She's now my wife, and we have 2 kids, so everything worked out. But we moved to Colorado, and we didn't really have, neither of us had jobs, and I didn't have a job at a brewery, but you know, we tried our hardest. We camped in the state park, you know, and did that whole deal. And I finally was able to get a job, and I got a job at the Great Divide Brewing Company, which some of you may know of. So in 1998, started working with those guys, and again, I was able to get some great experience. I kind of rose through the ranks there, you know, with recipe development and, you know, just really learning the brewing process, and I ended up as head brewer at Great Divide. And a few years later, it was 2003, I was kind of looking for a change, and just a few blocks away, actually, was Flying Dog Brewery. So I went and I talked to the guys at Flying Dog Brewery, and then I moved over there, and you know, and it's been great since. So that was 2003. So I've been with Flying Dog for 8.5 years. I started on there as a lead brewer, and then kind of head brewer, and you know, more recently brewmaster. And that's kind of how I got here. And just to give you just a quick chronology of Flying Dog, and we'll talk more about some of the more gonzo aspects of Flying Dog as we go through some of these other beers. But Flying Dog started as a brew pub in Aspen, Colorado in 1990. The beer was very popular, so just a few years later, a production facility was started in Denver. And by the way, if I start talking too fast and you guys aren't keeping up, just like tell me to slow down. So we had a production facility in Denver, and that worked great, and the beer became more and more popular, and we saw continued growth over the years. We grew out of that brewery, we moved to a brewery that was really just a few blocks away, and you know, produced beer there. But by about 2005, we were starting to outgrow that brewery. And even then, we were widely distributed, and a lot of our sales were east of the Mississippi. Mississippi kind of divides the U.S. in half, and it's, you know, a lot of shipping to get out there. So we started looking at some options of, you know, what we could do to produce beer in the East Coast, kind of save on some of those, basically the gas and, you know, all the transport logistics and costs that go with it. So we traveled to the east, and we started talking to some breweries, and we actually considered contract brewing for a little while. And of course, that would be a situation where another brewer would make our beer for us, and I wasn't so crazy about that, but it was the kind of thing that we needed to investigate. Well, we came upon the Frederick Brewing Company, and they're in Frederick, Maryland. That's where our brewery is now. It's about an hour west of Washington, and started talking with them about, you know, contracting or what are the possibilities. And we realized that they were, you know, they kind of told us that they were in pretty bad shape. They were basically about to go out of business, and in fact, the bank had kind of already taken control of them. So we made an offer to the bank on the brewery, and we got a really good deal on a beautiful production brewery. So we bought the brewery, and that was in 2006. And from 2006 to 2008, we produced beer simultaneously out of both facilities. And my role was to kind of travel back and forth and make sure that the beer was consistent between the 2 locations, which isn't really an easy task. And it gave me a whole new respect for breweries that have multiple sites and do a good job in most cases of producing consistent beer. But my job got a lot easier in 2008 when it just made total sense for us to concentrate our operation to the Frederick Brewery. So in January of 2008, we ceased production in the Denver Brewery. We moved some of our fermenters out to the Frederick Brewery, increasing its capacity. And of course, all the employees that were in Denver were offered full relocation so that we kind of keep the team together. A lot of them took us up on the offer, some of them didn't. But yeah, since 2008, we've been producing beer in Frederick. It's also very close to the port of Baltimore, which allows us to get our export beer out very quickly and efficiently for the export markets. And Sweden is actually our best import market. So thank you. Okay, so that's kind of the Flying Dog story, my story, but we should probably move along here with the tasting. The next beer we have here should be the Raging Bitch. I think I have mine out of order, so I think I was drinking Raging Bitch over here. So you guys have Raging Bitch as your next beer, right? Yes, you should see it. It should look like this. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and do our little drive-by and do our sniff and our taste.
This is good shit.
It's good shit. Good beer, no shit is what it is. So, what we have here is a style that I'm not going to say that Flying Dog invented, but we were kind of pioneers in this style. Belgian IPA. So, are you guys mostly familiar with the IPA style? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, all right. So you're an educated group. What we did in this case, one of the fun things about brewing is experimentation and kind of playing around to come up with just new flavor combinations. So, I mentioned that any wheat is kind of a classic style. So you can kind of focus in and say, okay, what are the characteristics of the style? It's very specific as far as the color and the alcohol content and bitterness and all that. Well, you don't tell a painter like, hey, I want the painting to be like this and only these colors or whatever. You let the painter really, make his art. Excuse me. And in our case, that's what we wanted to do. So we started experimenting. We actually took elements of a beer we don't have here, but we have downstairs a beer called Snake Dog. It's an American style IPA. And we took, there's something called wort, W-O-R-T. Wort is the unfermented beer. So after that hot side brewing process, you have this wort. We took that and we changed some of the characteristics with that. We put it in a small fermenter, and we added a very unique Belgian white beer yeast strain. And we fermented it out. And then we added a very unique hop called Amarillo. And we come up with this interesting flavor profile so that when you smell it and you taste it, you kind of have this nice tropical fruit, passion fruit type aroma. And then there's some crystal malt in the grist, which kind of adds complexity in the body and balances things out with some sweetness. For the most part, all beer is a balance of malt sweetness and hop bitterness. There are a few exceptions. Anybody who's ever had a goose, lambic? They're kind of pretty different beer, very sour, you know what I mean? So that would be kind of one of the very few exceptions to that bitterness and sweetness type of balance. So we feel that we struck a very nice balance with this beer. We started producing it in 2009, and it quickly, it was about December 2009 when we first bottled it, and then it quickly became our bestseller in 2010, and it remains our bestseller actually today. So Raging Bitch, and a lot of times, so you guys, I think you've seen the label. If not, we'll have the bottle up here afterwards. You can go downstairs to the Wicked Wine booth and check it out. But it's pretty off the wall, and people ask, well, why is it called Raging Bitch? And some people think that we're just trying to kind of make a big splash or something. But this yeast that we use, we call it El Diablo. The devil is what it means, and it's an extremely aggressive fermenter. It ferments twice as quick as any of our other yeast. So we started off thinking like, devil dog, or what kind of devil thing we could do, but we also knew like this fermentation is raging, and then we said, what a raging bitch this beer is, this yeast is, and we kind of like the name. And the thing is that we have our culture. We are who we are. Flying Dog, we're Flying Dog. So we don't necessarily think about demographics or trying to target a certain audience. So we said Raging Bitch, and we were like, we're a little worried. So we sent out some emails and we had some conversations with the women in the brewery and said, well, what do you guys think? And they were like, fuck yeah, we love it. We love it. So right then and there we knew that it was fine and it was going to be fine. And since its release, it's been very popular. But it's interesting though, because in the US, this Raging Bitch, there were a couple of states and in America you have the 50 states are kind of like 50 different countries. They all kind of can make their own rules with their liquor control. So we had the state of Michigan said that no, this beer, it's it's a danger to public safety because. Are you fucking kidding me? So, well, the thing is in America, it's great. We have something called the Constitution, which gives us the freedom of speech. So we actually sued Michigan. We said, look, it's freedom of speech. We say what we want. I mean, this beer is not going to hurt anybody in Michigan. There are other beers. There's a wine called Bitch Creek. There's Arrogant Bastard. There's these other names that are a little more inflammatory if you're going to look at them that way. So we actually, took them to court, and we actually won on the grounds of freedom of speech. So now the beer is allowed to be sold in Michigan. So the fight's not quite over yet. But, okay, so Raging Bitch. Any questions to this point? I mean, we'll definitely try to carve out some time for questions a little bit. I was told the other day I was doing another presentation, and somebody said, "Oh, the Swedes, they're very quiet, and they won't ask any questions unless you get a couple beers in them." So maybe a couple more beers. But seriously, are there any questions up to this point? Sorry, alcohol percentage is 8.3. And that's the thing is I go through these beers. If there's questions about the specifics, I kind of I kind of highlight things. But 8.3%, so it's on the stronger side. I found myself in the unfortunate situation of having maybe a couple too many Raging Bitches, and the next morning it's described when you're not feeling so good and you drank too many Raging Bitches that you were bitch slapped. So you have to be careful not to be bitch slapped. So be careful when you're drinking this beer. All right. So yes.
Yes. Is it okay if I take this presentation for personal use?
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Yes.
I had drank like a lot of beer and I did piss so bad, so I was like just running out like really.
Yes.
Taking a piss. So not to miss anything, I'm just gonna tape you and the presentation because it's really interesting. I like it.
Yes. I don't want you to wet your pants, so that would it'd be a little awkward, especially being that you're in the front row. If you're in the back, if you guys in the back will wet your pants. Have at it. Have at it. Okay. We'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we'll move on to our next beer, which should be the Horn Dog Barley Wine. Do our drive-by, do our sniff.
Very good.
And our taste. Now, this is kind of the second beer that falls neatly into some stylistic guidelines. So this is an English-style barley wine. That's different from the American. What's that?
Was it English?
Well, it's English in style. So again, when we talk about style, some beers are in that stylistic category, and others are just artistic creations. Either way, they're artistic creations. But this falls neatly into a category. And in America, a lot of American-style barley wines are very assertively hopped. They're very hoppy. They have a big bitterness component. And we stuck true to kind of the roots of this beer. This beer started many years ago. And what you'll find here, of course, it's a very strong beer, about 10.2% alcohol. So it's a very big beer. And when you basically we have some caramel malt in there. We have a lot of sugar when the fermentation starts. And we use a very unique English yeast strain, so that when this fermentation happens and the sugar is consumed, the yeast produces a lot of fruity notes. And part of that fruit also comes from some of the more caramel and malts that we're using. But you'll see that you get a very nice fruity, raisiny, plummy type of aroma out of this beer.
Raisins and plums.
How long have you brewed this?
How long have we brewed it? Well, I started with Flying Dog in 2003, and I think it was probably being brewed for at least 5 to 7 years before I started. Yeah.
Have you saved some bottles and tried them out for
for vintage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. So the question, if you guys can hear, is this a good beer to age? And it is. Not all beer is, but this is the perfect example of a beer. And we'll have another one here that is, but that you can lay down. You can lay it down and you can let it age for a few years or more, and you'll see the complexity change. And as the beer gets older, you'll see that some of those fruity characteristics are accentuated, and you get some notes of a sherry, which is very nice. So plum, and the plum is intensified, so it kind of really it really changes. It's really a beer that's worth aging. If you go to the Wicked Wine booth, we've actually got 2 vintages down there. So you can get the 2010 or the 2009. So if you're interested in kind of see how the flavors evolve, you can go down and you can get a sample of each and maybe even try to do a side by side, and you'll see how that works.
Question.
Yeah.
This has some nice sweetness in it,
Mm-hmm.
yet still quite strong in alcohol.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, really, we talked about wort. That's the unfermented beer. Wort can have different characteristics of fermentability, and yeast also has certain levels of what we call attenuation, which means how far it's going to consume the sugar. So by working with both those components, you'll see that you can kind of manipulate things to keep the residual sugar amount higher. So we start with a lot of sugar, and we take it down, and we still leave a decent amount of sugar to leave that sweetness there. That caramel malt also helps with the perception of sweetness, but it's a very sweet beer. And again, American style barley wines these days, if you're drinking, especially the California, I'd describe as California, the West Coast barley wines, they tend to be very hoppy. So we feel that our beer is very unique in that we haven't kind of fallen into the, we're leaders, not followers. So we didn't just say, oh, well, if everybody else is making these hoppy barley wines, that we will. So a lot of our beers are hoppy and assertive, but this beer, we kind of stuck with the traditional style, traditional English style. Any other questions? I must be doing an excellent job.
What was the name of it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, sorry. Yes, it's called Horn Dog barley wine. So yes, and
The
yeah.
first one?
I'm sorry?
The name of the first one.
In heat wheat Hefeweizen. So we started with in heat wheat Hefeweizen. Then we went to, of course, our Raging Bitch Belgian IPA, and now we're on to the Horn Dog barley wine. The question often comes up, labels. So if you see the labels and the artwork on the labels, it's pretty off the wall. It's pretty crazy. We actually have an artist. His name is Ralph Steadman. Do you guys know a man named Hunter Thompson?
Yeah.
Sure. So Hunter Thompson had a relationship with the brewery that started in the 70s. In the early 70s, Hunter was doing a story for you ever hear of the Kentucky Derby in America? It's our biggest horse race, if you haven't heard of it. It's a big deal. So every year in Louisville, Kentucky, all these horse race enthusiasts or drunks get together, and they drink a drink called mint juleps, and they all wear silly hats. And then they bet lots of money on horses. Hunter at the time was working for a magazine called Scanlon's Magazine. It only lasted, I think, about 9 months or about a year. But he was going to do this story, and Hunter, they needed an illustrator. And Hunter said, just give me the fucking wackiest guy you have. So they had a guy. His name was Ralph Steadman. He lives in England. He's still alive today. He's 75 years old. They sent him over, and I think this is 1972. And these guys get together at the Kentucky Derby. And on the front of things at Kentucky Derby, it seems like this kind of prestigious, thing, and the silly hats and the mint juleps. But kind of like behind the scenes, like everybody's just wasted, and they're like puking in bathrooms, and it's just this insane scene. So Hunter and Ralph get together, and they hit it off from the very beginning. They had this insane weekend together, covering this Kentucky Derby story, and that's where that relationship started. Our founder is a man named George Stranahan. He lived in Aspen, Colorado, Woody Creek, right outside of Aspen. And it was just a few years later when Hunter was coming through town looking for a place to stay, and George had a kind of a cabin on his ranch. And those guys hooked up, and George let Hunter stay in his cabin, and these three guys became friends. And they were sitting in Woody Creek Tavern, which is, of course, it's still around today, a small pub, up in the mountains. And they're hanging out together. And George had just started the brew pub, so this is it's about 1990 or so. And Ralph's kind of guy, as an artist, that you might not ask him directly to do something for you. It's kind of, you don't want to be rejected. You don't want to say, you're like, Ralph, would you make my label? And say, piss off, So George actually asked Hunter to ask Ralph if he would do the labels. So George asked Hunter, and Hunter says, no fucking way, man. He's not gonna do these labels for you. And then of course Hunter, talks to Ralph, and Ralph, says, no, it's not something I do, but he did. he went back and he made the first 2 Flying Dog labels. It was the Doggy Style Pale Ale and the Road Dog, or Porter. And he made these labels and he sent them. And one day George opens up his door and there they are, the proofs for the labels sitting on his doorstep. And that's how our relationship began many years ago. And to this day, actually, Ralph is still making labels for us. We just had a couple new ones come through. We're going to have some beers that you guys will see in the early spring with some new, fresh Ralph Steadman artwork. So very exciting story. So pretty much every beer that we have, all these beers here tonight, and with rare exception, we may have a beer that is in draft only or something. It's not in bottles where we don't have a label for. But every label is done by Ralph Steadman. So, you know, it's. I think that's the thing. Sometimes people think that like this is some gimmick, or you know, like what are you trying to do? I mean, if you see the Raging Bitch label, I mean, it's just fucking off the wall. And you know, when you see it, but there's a true story, there's a true relationship there. And again, you know, Flying Dog, just like anything else, we're true to who we are. We're not kind of targeting any demographic. We're not trying to be somebody we're not. We're just authentic, real, you know, aggressive and insane, and you know, as fun as we want to be. So it's a truly a great story, and we're really proud that Ralph, you know, this relationship has continued on for as long as it has.
What about the Flying Dogs logo? You made that also?
Yes, it's the famous wings. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So yes, he made that for us as well. You know, so that's a big part of who we are.
Okay. One more question.
Okay.
Can you buy this beer in Sweden, so the barley wine, because you have only the Gonzo, I think.
You guys have this little thing called the Systembolaget, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of slows things down a little bit sometimes. So
no.
Actually, just for fun, just for my benefit, can I see? And please, just be totally honest. A show of hands. Who? Well, I'd say let's just do one question. A show of hands of if you would change, if you could do something different than Systembolaget, who would do it in here? Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Oh, you're so content. There's 3 people out of 50. Oh my goodness!
What's wrong?
What's that?
What's wrong with Systembolaget? You got a lot of stuff.
They do have a lot of stuff, but yeah.
The best in the world. I haven't met any other place that good.
Well, there's a lot of benefits to Systembolaget.
It's expensive.
It's well, of course, there's a lot of taxes, and apparently there's a lot of health issues. I don't know. I think that's part of the reasoning for a lot of those taxes. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting to me because I like having these conversations, and I like, you know, just kind of learning about different systems. We've actually traveled through a few of the Scandinavian countries and seen how these monopolies work in the different countries. So there are many benefits, but there are other alternatives. But at the end of the day, if you're getting what you want to get and you're happy, then it sounds good to me.
Like beer or chalice sidestep at the Systembolaget, but wines, they're really good at wines. But
they are.
Beer are searching their way in, but I think that's a big issue. I think. I would like to see more beers from.
Well, I think
Flying Dog is kind of marginalized. It's like, oh, if you're lucky, there's maybe one at a specific point in time. Oh, this is Flying Dog.
Well,
here you can buy this, but $4 or $5.
Right.
A bottle.
Right.
It's like nothing else.
Well, it's interesting because you can get Flying Dog in a lot of places. Right now, Systembolaget, we have our Gonzo Imperial Porter. So yeah, so there's certain things you can do. I mean, I was in the downtown store yesterday. It's a beautiful store. I mean, it's a great selection, very professional. So it's a very nice system, but it'd be nice to see a little more variety. But you guys also have the option of going to the catalog and choosing a beer that may not be available. And I recommend taking a look and see, because I think we have some beers that you may be able to get in there. So that's my sales pitch, but I'm not. I'm the brewmaster, not the salesman. So okay, I think let's move on to the next beer. We're kind of time is just fading away here. So our next beer is the Double Dog. This is basically we can describe it as an Imperial IPA or a double IPA. Let's do our drive-by and our taste.
Wow.
Holy shit is the comment up right now.
This is good. Wow.
So this is this beer is 11.5%. So 11.5. So
Sweden, we call it, it's above 10%.
elf beer, yes. 11.5. So in this case, we basically, guys, you with me? So we take an IPA and we basically almost double it, and that means kind of double the ingredients, especially the hops. And excuse me, with a beer like this, we use this kind of this hop called Warrior, which provides our balance, even though it's a very hop-forward beer. But then we have the boil is 1 hour and 45 minutes, and we have hop additions every 15 minutes. And when you're brewing and when you're boiling, the hops that you add at the beginning of the boil just give you that bitter balance. And then as you move down the line through the time of the boil, the hops you add tend to give you flavor and aroma. And we take this beer a step further where we'll actually do something called dry hopping, where we add hops directly to the fermenter, and that just gives you that big aroma. The hops we use in this case is a hop called Columbus and Cascade. And these hops are known for their citrus, kind of citrus and grapefruity characteristics. So that's what you're seeing here. And of course we have a little bit of caramel on there, just to kind of get that balance, to get that sweetness. And what you'll see with a beer like this is that as it ages, and so we kind of have a debate around the brewery, because some people, when this beer is just brand new, when it's first packaged, it's very sharp with its bitterness. So it's very intense. And then as it gets, as it spends some time in the package or in the bottle, you see that intensity kind of lower down, and you see some of the malt characteristics come up, and the balance starts to change. And some people prefer it after that kind of that progression and that evolution happens, where you have that maltiness come up. And even then, and I would describe this beer, that's kind of the way it's tasting now, where some of that sweetness is starting to creep up, but it's still just jam-packed with hops. I mean, it's hop infused kind of all through the process. So it's almost difficult to imagine, how sharp it would be out of the what we call a bright tank, which is the spot that the beer sits right before it goes to packaging. Question in the back?
Which stage do you prefer yourself?
I like it right out of that. I like the sharp. I mean, I love bitterness, so I love the really sharp characteristics of the bitter.
How close do you say that will fall off with the sharpness of the beer?
It's a very gradual process. So I would say that until about, with beer, there's a lot of it's not so easy. There's no real standard way because of temperature. Temperature's a pretty big deal. So if you keep the beer very cold, 2 or 3 degrees, it'll almost preserve itself as it was brewed. But at warmer temperatures, 12, 15, 19 degrees, it will mature more fastly or quicker. Sorry, but so more fastly. I don't know. Well, I speak. I could. You guys, you should go along with me. So that's a big part of the answer to that question. But I'd say 6 months or so before you really start seeing that evolution happen. But it's not the kind of thing that right at 6 months it changes. It changes gradually, and temperature is a big part of that.
How old is this?
How old is this? Let's take a look. So this beer was packaged. Let's see. You guys do dates the right way, actually. Where you put the day, the month, and the year. We do the month, the day, and the year. We're crazy. So this beer was packaged on November 28th, 2010. So we're just under a year on this one. Yes.
How much of the dry hop do you think you can now? It's like almost a year old.
How much? Well, I think that what you get is you kind of have that complexity there, where let's see, you get some of that, but it's interesting because sometimes I think it's a little to separate and distinguish the difference between some of the fruitiness from the fermentation, the yeast characteristics with the hops. You can't really always tell exactly which is which, but I'd say we still have a very nice amount of fruit and hop aroma. But yes, you're right. It's certainly different from a very, very fresh version. Yes.
Which amount of hops do you use for the dry hopping compared to the hops you put in the beer during the hopping?
Geez, it's tough to say. I mean, we have. I mean, it's basically an insane amount of hops. But we'll dry hop this beer at a rate of like 3 pounds per barrel. I mean, it may be difficult. A barrel for us, shit, is about a little less than a hectoliter. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. My apologies, but it's a lot. I mean, it's when we have. I mean, you know, and again, this probably doesn't make sense. We have, you know, big fermenter, boxes and boxes of hops that we put into the top of the fermenter and let them go in. So it's very assertively hopped, and you'll see that with a lot of beers in the U.S. Where the kind of we describe it as, you know, pounds per barrel, you know, in different kind of ratios, and some of it gets very extreme. And hops are one of the much more expensive ingredients that go into beer. So part of that, I mean, you know, when you see the price elevated, part of that is because of how many hops are in there. Any other questions before we move on? Yeah.
How many beer units does this beer have?
Usually, so analytically, when we check it, it usually comes in, I think the label might say 85 or something. Usually, analytically, when we run it through, it's coming through usually right around 100. So 100 BUs, which is, you know, quite on the high side. Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, one question. If you think about the attitude of the beer and our names and all, I see quite some similarities to Brewdog. Do you have any cooperation, or you're both about hounds?
Yes, there are a lot of. The question is that with Brewdog and maybe some similarities between the breweries and the fact that they're a dog too. If you look at all the dogs in the U.S., I mean, it's crazy. I'll tell you right now, within an hour drive of the brewery, there's 2 breweries with dog themes. There's one called Dog Brewing, which is very close to us, and there's another one that's a very teeny brewery, but they're called Baying Hound, and of course the label is, you know, this hound dog. And so I think that, and then I could go on and on. There's Lucky Labrador, and there's Hair of the Dog in Portland. I mean, you can go on and on. So I think at the end of the day, people really love their dogs, and for some reason drinking beer makes them think of their dog. I don't know. Okay, all right. We should probably move on here. Gonzo Imperial Porter. So we'll do our drive-by and our taste. Okay, so you guys know Hunter Thompson. So in 2005, you know, the way Hunter lived his life, he always took comfort, and he knew one thing. Of course, he loved guns. He would go. I mean, he would shoot things all the time. If he got upset, he would shoot his typewriter. I mean, he didn't care. But he always knew one thing too. He always knew that he had a way out. He wanted a way out. And by the time 2005 came around, he was in a lot of pain from a few different medical issues, and he finally had enough. And he was in his kitchen in Woody Creek, and he took his own life. I won't get any more graphic than that, but of course it was upsetting to everybody who knew Hunter. But we decided that we needed to commemorate his life, and to do that, of course, we're a brewery. The best thing that we could do would be a commemorative beer to really celebrate who Hunter was. And we intended on this to be a one-time release. We put it in 75 centiliter bottles. And we made the recipe as gonzo if we could, of course, considering how crazy and gonzo Hunter was. So the recipe consisted of just literally like insane amounts of dark malts and caramel malts and insane amounts of hops. And it was, and again, not a very inexpensive beer to brew. So we put this together, and I had the recipe. And if I showed the recipe to another brewer, you look at it and you go, "Are you fucking crazy? This is insane. Why would you do this?" But it was a one-time release, so we released it, and the feedback was phenomenal. I mean, people were just, we had to keep making the beer. I mean, there was nothing we could do. So we continued to produce the beer, and it's still around to this day. And we actually have something right now called the Gonzo Foundation. One of the things that Hunter did so well, he was credited with kind of creating a style of journalism, Gonzo journalism. In America today, and maybe arguably around the world, true reporting and journalism is something that has kind of gone away. We get kind of You know, a lot of people use the Mick, like McDonald's, to describe things that have just been, you know, the commodity type of news source or whatever. So we're losing that, and we're afraid that might go away. So Anita Thompson is Hunter's widow. She started the Gonzo Foundation, and we feel it's extremely important. The Gonzo Foundation will actually give scholarships to journalism students to kind of keep that true reporting, do not fall into the trap of the mass media. So the proceeds that we make from the Gonzo and Peer Reporter actually go to the Gonzo Foundation, so that we can keep the spirit of Hunter alive, and you know, keep that ongoing you know, legitimacy, hopefully, in reporting for years to come. So I don't know, hey, guys, cheers to Hunter.
Yes. One question. You changed the recipe for the Gonzo.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's perfect. I'm glad you asked that. The recipe actually never changed. We had some we did have some internal issues with communication about alcohol contents. And we had, you know, from a graphic design standpoint, we had an error on a label. This is going back probably about 2 to 3 years ago. And I forget what it said. I think it might have said 7.2% or something. The beer's always been the 9.2%. That has never changed. We've never changed anything about the recipe, nor would we want to. I mean, you know, we brew it to the true Gonzo style of the Gonzo Imperial Porter. So I'll apologize to you now for that, because there's been a lot of confusion about it. And you know, there was actually a point in time when you could look at the label, you could look at a website, you know, maybe even some printed material, and see 3 different ABVs. That wasn't necessarily the only beer we had a problem with. I mean, and it's important to be consistent in communication. I mean, I was you know, I was looking at a beer recently at a festival, and you know, they had 4 of our beers, and the 4th one in heat wheat, they said was 5.5%. It's 4.7. So sometimes those things can happen, and it's unfortunate. But I assure you, and I can guarantee and promise you, and I've been around the whole time, that nothing has ever changed with the Gonzo recipe. So hopefully, at least among this group, we can put that to rest.
You made the wild dog?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you're planning to do something else with this, with the Gonzo, like bourbon? What's your next step?
Well, the question is we did a Wild Dog, which is a barrel-aged version of this beer. It's very nice. We have it downstairs at the Wicked Wine booth. You should try it. The question is, are we going to continue to do it? We do have some barrels in-house now, and there'll be some small production runs. I think that hopefully we'll be able to get a small quantity over here. And then as far as the future of that program, it may or may not continue. We're going to see. We're always exploring new and fun, you know, kind of artistic expressions of different beers. We've got a beer coming up early next year that is what we're calling a farmhouse IPA. So the farmhouse tradition, if you're familiar with the Saison style or the beer to garden to some degree, where you kind of use local ingredients and put together you know, more of a Belgian, use a nice Belgian yeast strain, come up with a nice complex beer, and we added a hop component to it. And we've done some trials with this, and we're very excited about that. So definitely look for that in mid to early spring next year. But yeah, as far as the actual barrel-aged Gonzo, there is some more coming. But I can't promise you that you know, a year or 2 from now that it'll still be around. So we've got probably about 5 minutes for questions before we close things up. So what did you guys want to know that I didn't tell you? And don't ask me, like, you know, I don't know, like who assassinated JFK, or I mean, I'm worried about that, 'cause I don't know, but.
In the process of your own work, how do you evaluate the quality of different ingredients?
How do we evaluate the quality of different ingredients?
Yeah.
That's a great question. You know, we use American barley, and that barley, of course, gets malted. I won't get into the whole malting process. That could take another half hour. I don't know. But we actually get a very good analysis from our raw material suppliers. To some degree, we trust them, and the raw material suppliers we use are very well trusted in the U.S. So we can kind of look. The one thing that's important to keep in mind, a lot of people don't think about, is that beer is food. And beer is also a culinary item. It's a culinary expression of basically, if you're a chef, what does a chef do? A chef takes agricultural ingredients, combines them, uses some creativity, uses some different processes, and comes up with some kind of, hopefully, great dish. That's what brewers do too. Breweries are kitchens. Our kitchens, our pots and pans that we use in breweries are a little bigger than the pots and pans that a chef might use in the kitchen. But at the end of the day, they're both agricultural products. And that's the difference between factory beer and craft beer is that with craft beer, you know, the artistic expression aspect of it really comes through, because it's not just following some factory recipe and process. It's about having fun, being creative, and putting those together. Does that answer your question? The quality of our ingredients is very good. We actually had hop selection in Yakima Valley. I was over here. I didn't have a chance to be there, but we have our people in the fields in Yakima, Washington, doing hop rubs and selecting, the hops, different lots. There's different areas of fields that these are grown, and we actually do the rubs. We sniff the hops, and we choose the things that we feel are best.
What kind of hops do you prefer?
What kind of hops do I prefer? Yeah. Well, I like more assertive hops. I like the Columbus hop. There's some other newer hops, Citra. Simcoe. We did an Imperial Simcoe IPA single hop. There's lots of very nice assertive hops, and we like to use this. We like to use them for our IPAs. All the way in the back.
What's your least favorite beer style?
Geez, it's kind of tough. I mean, I like almost everything I try, and while I've grown to like this style more, but the true Bamberg Rausch beers, I don't know if you've ever had the smoke beer, those are a little tough for me. So, but I don't know. I could say factory lager, that's an easy out though, I think, but other questions?
Well, kind of in the same vein, well, out of all the Flying Dogs, which one is your absolute favorite?
Yeah, this is a frequent question. So out of all the Flying Dog beers, which one was my favorite? It's a little tough. It's kind of like asking what your favorite child is. But for me, my everyday drinker is Snake Dog IPA, which we don't have here right now in front of us, but you should try it. 7.1%, which is a little bit on the strong side. I could see it maybe being a little less, but I love the beer the way it is. So that'd probably be the one beer that I would normally drink. Other questions?
You said it's a difference between big breweries and small, but how big can you be before you get too big?
The question is that there's a difference between...
And why?
Well, I'm citing that, big factory beers and smaller craft brewers. How big can you be and still be a craft brewer?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the answer is that if you have the creativity, the passion, and you're always kind of challenging the status quo of what beer is and experimenting, and then staying true to your roots and not letting efficiencies with agricultural products and compromising in those agricultural products you want to use, and you have a culture in the brewery that supports all these things. So if your guys come to work and they don't care if they're making biscuits or toys or glassware or whatever, they know that in our brewery every day they come in and they're happy to come in. They know that at the end of the day, the beer that's going out, somebody's going to enjoy it. They all love beer. None of the guys that work in the brewery don't like beer. Everybody's very passionate about beer, and we have a lot of conversations about creativity. We're going to have a meeting actually a week from yesterday, a week from now basically, where we're going to have the brewers, they have an opportunity to kind of pitch their ideas. We're going to do a series next year of small batches. Every month, a different brewer will get to do a different beer. But they've got to come to the team with concepts and say, this is a beer I think we should brew. They can be as detailed or as not detailed as they want. But hey man, think about what do you want? What kind of marketing? What name? What kind of marketing concept? There's a lot that goes into the whole thing, and that's a big part of it. And we want to share the overall experience of bringing kind of a new creative concept to market. So I think that's the difference. There's breweries like Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada might be 1 million barrels this year, but when I toured the brewery in March, they're still craft. You still get that feeling, that culture when you walk in and you talk to people that work there, that they're so passionate that you truly feel like they do enjoy their craft and they're making a craft beer.
Well, you love your beer like your children, of course. That makes you a bit of conservative. What about innovations and how to develop and to conserve still your great beer? How do you function?
Sorry, the last part.
To develop new beer innovations.
Yeah, innovations.
And still preserve your own great beer. How do you think?
I'm not sure how I can explain that question to the group, but I think the question is about experiment. We always experiment. We'll never stop experimenting. So, but that's how we got Raging Bitch. So if we stop experimenting, we're not going to come up with anything fun and new that we're able to share with the world. So we don't have the marketing department coming to the brew team and saying, you know, a cider. We looked at the market demographics and this number and that number, and we feel that if we did a cider, we'd sell this many units. That's not the way it works in Flying Dog. It works from the fun of experimentation, coming up with new creative concepts, and having a good time with it. So hopefully that answers your question. Probably like just one or two more questions, because we're about an hour here. So anything else?
How do you make an awesome cider?
Well, you have in America, you have all these kind of soda pop beers these days. I mean, we would never do that. I mean, it's you know, it's just what happens. That's it. Are you guys good? Any one more question? No. No.
Are you Colorado Avalanche fans or Washington Capitals?
Colorado Avalanche, Washington.
Sorry.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you all coming. Thanks. You came, you tasted the beers. I hope you enjoyed them all. I hope you enjoyed our stories and going through the beers. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the festival.